Alright, this is another video in the Vevor cream separator series. I have another video on how to set up and use the Vevor cream separator, but this one's going to be more about how to repair it if you have used it incorrectly or you did not follow the setup and you flooded the machine like I did. As you can see here, we have the Vevor in parts, and I'm going to explain to you why I've done what I've done and the improvements I'm going to make on this machine. So first things first, if you've purchased this machine, it will come all put together, and you will find that this ring will have been already secured on here like so, in some particular form or fashion, with some screws in it. The first thing that I would do before you do anything else is take some silicone caulking and run all the way around this ring right here. What that's going to do is you will see that if the machine does flood or overflows, there's some overflow ports here, and those overflow ports run right down into where this ring is, and this ring then runs right down into the motor compartment, and there is only like two tiny little holes for the milk to come out should the machine get flooded. And what's going to happen is any cream or any milk that you spill is going to get in the base of this machine, and it's going to start to smell funky, like really funky. And then you're going to be faced with doing what I've done here and taking it all apart to clean out the machine. Now, if you are past that point and you have now flooded the machine and it is in need of repair, I'm going to kind of show you some tips and tricks on how to fix this, only because I've done this 2 or 3 times now. And so I'm going to show you a couple of quick things to make it a little bit better, so that I don't have to do this as often or at all. You will notice on the inside it is unfinished. I am going to spray some primer in there. I've washed this thoroughly with some Dawn dish soap, hit it with a wire brush. It does look nasty, but it's just stained. And of course, just as best practice, I've gone ahead and taped this all off just to limit overspray so that it stays nice and red and doesn't look like black primer. You can tape off the threads if you wanted to. I don't think it's that big a deal. Okay, so you don't have to cut the connections to the motor, but you'll notice I have the switches that are on the outside have to be taken out that way. So you can't just drop them out on the inside, which leaves no way to get these wires out of here, the motor out of this direction without cutting wires. And because I wanted the motor out so I could wash and paint the inside of this, I've cut the wires. Now, so that I don't have to worry about cutting them next time, what I've done is I've put butt connectors in, and as you can tell, I've actually done them in such a manner as they only go one way. So the negative only connects to the negative and the positive only connects to the positive. I cannot put the positive with the negative because they're both males on the other end. So they can only go one way, and that is to keep me from accidentally doing it the wrong direction. So if you have to remove this motor a bunch, you might think about that. So the next thing we're going to do is basically reinstall the motor. All right, so we're going to reinstall this motor. The one thing you do not want to forget to do is put these springs back on the legs of the motor. That is what's going to kind of keep it centered. And so we're basically just going to drop those right into the 3 holes like that, so that they come through there. There is no wrong direction. As long as one of the posts is in each of these, it doesn't matter the clock of the motor, so to speak. All right, so the first thing you want to do is put the first set of nuts on there. You'll find that there's 2 sets with the washer in between. So what there will be is there will be the nut and then a washer and then another nut. For right now, we're just going to put a single nut on there, and I'll show you why here in a second. What we're going to try and do is we're going to set this as far up as we can on all 3 posts, and then we're going to work on getting this motor plumb after that. Now, this would be the part of the instruction manual where they tell you not to mess with this kind of stuff. We are not going to get this what's called a level. A level would be a horizontal measurement. Plumb is a vertical measurement, and so what we're going to do is use this sliding square. We are going to use it to get this completely plumb. We are going to have to end up turning the post of the motor because it has a retention ring there, and I do not want to change the retention ring remove it or anything. So what we're basically going to do is set this across. Let's bring this up here. What we're basically want to do is set this across the dividing line, or across this case. And then you can see as we slide this up there that this motor is just tilted ever so slightly this direction. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen the bolt on the underside. So we're basically going to loosen this bolt to tilt that motor just a little bit back until we get it completely plumb, where every time we slide this in here, we don't see any light in between there. So we're just going to keep letting that out. You may have to do both on one side, but basically we're just going to do that until it is almost exactly plumb. And that is what we're looking for, is for this motor to be exactly plumb. So once we have it very close to or at plumb, which that's almost perfect, we're basically going to turn this motor. What we're doing is, you can see there's the 3. We are going to divide this so that it is like sitting like this. And then we are going to adjust these 2 to tilt this back one way. So now we've done this gap, we're going to do this gap and this gap next. So that's actually very plumb. That way it is, that way. And then we are going to do this last gap over here. That is actually quite close to plumb as well. So I'm happy with that. That means that the shaft of the motor is sticking literally straight up and down. And that is what you're looking for. You do not have to worry about how high or low the motor is. We're going to control that by spinning this on or off more or less. So that is the big deal. But it's getting these all set up. So now we're going to very carefully set, now that we're not going to touch the bottom ones, or the top ones, however you look at them. We're going to put our lock washers in here, or friction washers, and then we're going to screw on the bottom nut without changing the top nut. Okay, the nuts on the bottom of yours may vary in size ever so slightly. Mine are a 14 millimeter. So I'm going to put a thin wrench, open end wrench on the bottom, and use a socket on the top to be able to just turn the one closest, and the one in the back I want to make sure doesn't turn, so that I'm not changing it. We're going to make sure that all 3 are locked in. Once that's done, this motor is going to be super plumb and super secure, and the top pieces of our machine will fit nicely without causing any interference or scraping. So now our machine is completely set up and plumb. So we are going to reinstall the bottom cover. It is just a Phillips head screw. Goes in through there. We're going to get the wires out of the way. Put that Phillips head screw in there. Okay, now we've done the Phillips head screw. We are all put together on the bottom. We've got our motor reinstalled and ready to go. The only thing we have left to do is set the height of this particular ring. And so I'm going to get it on there so it's not cross-threaded to start. And then I'm going to show you how we set the depth of this ring. Okay, to set the depth of your machine, you are going to need the centrifuge fully put back together. And it's going to need to be on the spindle. You do not need to worry about the rubber collar that goes on there for right now. The stop ring is what's actually going to stop this from going down, along with a bar that comes across here. So that's the first thing we're going to do, is have to put this back together. The second thing we're going to do is take the slides, take the dispensing ports from this and set them here. So in theory, what we should have is this should be centered in our machine with no interference. Of course, the level of your machine, your actual machine being level, you can see this board is not straight. But this machine being level is also going to affect the tilt of your motor. But you can double check to make sure we're not getting any interference between the metal pieces and the spinning of the rotor. So again, no interference here, which is exactly what we're looking for. It looks like this could be a little bit better to one side when we put these pieces on. It could be milling tolerances, it could be all sorts of other things. But as long as we are not getting interference when this is spinning, everything is fine. Now, the next thing we have to do is set the level of this. And I'm going to drop the tripod down so that we're at the same level to show you. So as you can see, we have these pieces fully seated on this plate right here. They are also fully seated together, and you'll notice that the ejection port, or the port for our heavy cream, is still visible, and that's what we want to see. So that when this is spinning and spraying heavy cream out, it is inside. You need to have it above this line. The next piece that fits on here is rather tall, so we don't have to worry about it being above that, just about being above here. Now, I will drop it down. If you want to spin this base, as you can see, that's dropping the whole procedure down, which is nice. But we will run into a point where there will be interference between the motor and this plate right here at a certain point. You can hear it starting to bang around, and that's where we get into issues of having this too low. Now, the next thing we're going to check is this is the skim port, so the part where the skim milk comes out, and we need to make sure that this is above the third portion. So if we were to drop it down, you can see that we get interference here with the cone and this slide part. So what we actually need to do is need to make sure, as I set the tripod back up, we need to make sure that this is high enough that we're not getting interference when the motor is spinning. So now we are not, but it is still low enough, or it is still high enough to be above this ring so that we are getting the skim milk ejected within here. Now, the next thing we are going to check is we're going to put the next piece on, and we want to make sure that that skim is not above this portion. So it needs to be between number 3 and number 4 plates in order to put the skim in the right place. And currently it is in between those two, and that is what we need. So as you can see there and there. Then we're going to double check the 5th plate, make sure our ejection port is above the 5th plate, and we are ready to go. We now have no interference, and everything is spraying off into the ejection ports that it belongs into. So we will get skim out of the bottom and cream out of the top. And now that we have this ring set where we want it, we can come back with our Phillips head, the 3 Phillips head screws that go into the base, and we can lock that ring into place where we want it. Now again, this is done from the factory, so if you're just purchasing this machine, see my other video on how to set up and use it. You do not need to go through all this. This would just be if you had an issue with the machine like I did. We are going to put all 3 of these set screws in, and now the machine is set back up and 100% ready to go. The only thing that we are going to do is, as I discussed before, we're going to put a bead of silicone caulk inside here, and that way we don't get any runoff going down in the motor again. And that's basically all you need to do. It's ready to go. So the only thing we have left to do is install our rubber O-ring. That is a deflector that should deflect the milk, if any does run down this part, out away from the motor, and just one more place that you can keep that done. That rubber stopper does set above that lock ring that is in there. Then our motor sits right back down on there, and there you go. Also, I do recommend not storing this on the post. I've had some troubles with that anodizing or corroding and sealing itself to the actual post where I couldn't get it off of there. So I would store it separately. make sure both pieces are dry and stored separately, and that way you don't have the problem with it getting locked on the motor. So thanks for watching. I have the other video on how to use this and set it up correctly so that you get the right amount of cream that you want out of it, the amount of heavy cream that you're looking for. So check out that video on my same channel. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.